Go. We're going live. Well, commenting on your comments.
Un, dos, tres, cuatro.
Oh
cinco,
my gosh,
seis,
what is
siete.
going on? Oh, my thing's like behind the thing and yours is in front of it. That's fun. That's because we had a bunch of cameras going. We were just laughing at comments. Dad, I don't think. Well, maybe you're the old guy. You need a friend to sit and like comment with. I feel like that would be Curtis and I when we're really old. Like we'll get canes and we'll sit up.
Yes.
We'll sit up somewhere of a place that we just absolutely disagree with, and just laugh and have a good time and
Yes.
make a ruckus, and people will yell at us, and then we'll throw things at them. That's the way it's gonna go.
That sounds actually like one
We
of the
could do it
funnest
from my
things
balcony
in the
now.
world.
We just like get enough people to go by my house. We could, from the
Yeah.
top of the hill. I think it'd be great.
That's well, like we could make commentary. This is what we should do. Like we could get like our own UFC show and make
And
commentary
then they would
on the
shut us
fights.
down for
or-
displaying it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Like we got
But it'd
shut
be
down
fun
for
for
that
a while
one
it lasted.
little video of Ben getting his butt kicked by the YouTuber.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah. So
yeah.
super
Well, Debbie,
fun.
hey Debbie. Debbie's in Montana tonight.
That's my aunt. That's Gary's wife. Yeah, they're in Montana. They're living the geezer box life, pulling a car behind a giant box. So I
Pulling
hope
a
you guys are
car
having fun.
behind a
Stay
giant
safe.
box. Well, I'm sure they're getting really good gas mileage with that giant box, right?
Yeah.
Like
Hope it's not
I'm guessing. I'm
kidding.
guessing that thing probably gets about maybe 10 miles to the gallon. I don't even know though. I don't even know.
If so, that's really close to the Suburban I have, which is sad.
Yeah.
I'll bet it gets like 8 or 6. Those things are. Yeah, I used to work at a gas station during college, and oh my gosh, those things take a lot of gas. And yeah, when they used to
Dude.
limit the pumps to like $50, it was like at least 3 or 4 times they'd have to run their card.
That's crazy. Whoa,
The-
really?
Oh yeah,
Wow.
on some of the big ones, not yeah.
Well,
I wouldn't call
on the
32 foot
automobile-
a giant. It's bigger than my car.
yeah.
Yes.
Pertaining to like the whole automobile world, some pretty exciting news came out this week, and
On
neither
what?
you or I even talked about it. Ford. Did you watch Ford's announcement?
Is this about the Mustang?
No. The Ford F-150 Lightning came out this week, and the
is this
announcement.
their one that they said is going to be better than the Cybertruck?
It's pretty dope, dude. You got to watch the reviews and what they has on it. It's fully electric, has a 300-mile range. It's all-wheel drive, so there's, which is nice. 2 motors, which allows it to be all-wheel drive. It can power your house, a standard house. It can actually distribute power the other way, so you can
Really?
power your house off of the pickup. Yeah. They say it can power your house. They estimate for about 3 days, the average household.
Not mine.
Yeah, well, yeah, not right now, especially. It's also the starting price. This is what's cool about it. The starting price was $40K. So
They're
if you
trying
get
to be
the
competitive.
they're trying to be competitive. If you get that federal incentive, the
Right.
rebate, which is $7,000, I think, right? So you can get it down to $33,000. But that's for the low range.
Did they
pickup,
say like what the towing capacity is? Because that was the one thing that was nice about the Cybertruck one, is that it
Yes.
was a triple motor, and that's what most people were ordering or had intended to order. And so they had I think they canceled the single motor rear wheel drive.
Yes. Well,
And-
it's just going to be the last one they produce.
Oh yeah, so they didn't cancel it, but they made it the last, where it was going to be one of the first, and they're like, oh crap, no one wants it. They're gonna. I think the triple motor was coming first, the Plaid or whatever the heck they call it. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, the dual motor I think actually is what the majority of the people wanted, just because the price range was where most people were like, okay, I can spend $50,000 or $55,000, and it'll give me that extra range. But yeah, so the towing capacity they're saying is around 10,000 pounds. 10,000 pounds. Yeah.
Dang.
But that's the thing. Like if you're towing something, an electric vehicle, 10,000 pounds, you're towing, your mileage, your range is going to go way down, right? Like you're going to be able to probably go, I don't know, 50
Right.
miles if you're towing 10,000. But I mean, also the same thing with a vehicle. If you're towing something, your gas mileage is going to go down too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for most. I mean, some of those diesel trucks, honestly, it doesn't matter what you put behind them. So, Yeah, in other words, if we pay part of the people's bill, it drops 7K. Yeah, I guess you could say it that way. I actually, I would, I'm, I think it's cool. Like, here's the thing. Like, it's like when they send the stimulus check, like, I'm not going to send it back. Technically, that came out of my taxes anyway. But when it comes to incentives and stuff, I do agree. I think that government subsidies for a lot of different things just need to go away and let the free market be the free market. It does artificially stand up things, but I would say that about a lot of technologies that I use too. So, um,
Yeah. And the thing with electric vehicles, I think incentives actually aren't a bad idea if you're trying to get away from fossil fuel usage on mass transit. So if
yeah.
you're going to like require or say, hey, we're transitioning away from fossil fuels, then if you make it feasible and more realistic for people to do so, that's obviously going to be a catalyst in
What
enabling
is a
them to
little
do
bit
that.
weird about it is like I pay gas tax, which tends to supposed to go to roads. Um, and so I'm paying for that ability to be on there, but there needs to be something so that incentive, they're paying you to take it. I think honestly, they should just say, well, the incentive is right now, there's nothing in place that makes you pay for the roads yet
Yet,
because you're not
right?
having
Because
to.
wasn't Oregon though
So you're
starting something like that?
maybe, well, they're trying, but that's hard to do. So like, why not make it that? So like right now don't have that in place yet. So your incentive is you're not paying that gas tax quite yet to push and just say that instead of giving the money, or instead of giving it as a credit, say that it's a tax write-off, so it comes
Mhm.
out of
Yeah,
your total income. So
I
it's
think
not the government funding it.
I
So
think
that
that's
would
what Oregon does. I
no,
think that's what
there's
Oregon
it's a
does.
tax credit.
No,
It
no, no. But there's a state and there's a federal. I
I
think
gotcha.
Oregon did a. I'm not guaranteed on this, but I think Oregon's tax is
Then
like
it
a write-off at the end of the
changed,
year.
but like when we went and test drove them, it was
Mm-hmm.
a credit. So it
Mm,
just was lower than it had used to be, which is fine. If they're going to do one, it should taper off. It shouldn't stay there forever. But at the same time, even Elon, who benefits probably the most from it because he didn't sell a gas vehicle, he says we can't have all electrical vehicles yet because our grids don't support it. We need to fix our
mm-hmm.
grid.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I mean, if you incentivize and it grows too fast, you could screw yourself on the other end too. So I yeah.
Yeah.
I
Right.
I
It's
think
a
I think
balancing
the
act for sure.
incentive to art should be to the companies, hey, make a better product that's cheaper and incentivize people by the price to move over to that technology. That's how we do other things. But I would say, let's stop subsidizing some of the other things that we subsidize too. So, of all the things that I would say I would fix in the government, that probably wouldn't be the thing I would aim at first. But I would tend to agree when we subsidize things like that, we can run the risk of standing up a economy that maybe can't stand on its own and won't ever and just waste money on it. So,
Well, infrastructure, I think if you're ever going to do it, now's a great time because we've shown that climate alone is a threat to our infrastructure, right? Recent ice storms in Texas and Oregon have shown that our power infrastructure needs to be redone like underground, right? We don't want to
yeah.
have all these above ground kind of systems. We need underground systems. So if that's a time where we're already working on it, we might as well further
Well, there was an
bolster it.
interesting report, and I can't remember. It's in a link in one of our old episodes that I talked about it. There was a group that got together, and they actually presented it to early on in the Trump presidency, and they had said, "Hey, we have an aging grid, and there's these areas that need to be fixed, but we also want to propose, due to some of the testing that we've done, that we manufacture and build our own controllers here in the states. That way we're not outsourcing to a different country, regardless of how
Mm-hmm.
we feel about them. They could put something in it, and if they could take it down, what they had found also in their tests is if the grid failed for a year, 90% of the population would suffer and die from that loss because they're not prepared for it due to our infrastructure requiring all of that. So they're saying, due to safety, we should, even if it costs us more, we need to manufacture these on our own. They, as far as I know, they didn't listen to them, or they haven't been replaced yet. It was like
Yes.
seven
Yeah.
main spots that needed to be replaced, and they're like, let's not outsource this, especially to China, which would bring us to our conversation, or we could jump into our
Bro.
conversation that you and
Bro.
I Started the other night. So we were having this conversation about the picture that I posted up, and I was saying I like to be antagonizing with the line that's on the beginning. It's not about fighting. Um, but
China,
when I was
China.
writing it, actually, I was thinking of fight for your rights to party,
Mm.
which is funny too. But then I just went with the most antagonizing thing I could write, which is just fight for rights. Um, and what started our conversation, was this last night or was this 2 nights ago or was it
I
yesterday
was
morning?
driving. I was driving to work. So what? What? Yesterday morning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
Yes.
yesterday morning.
Yeah, I was driving to
You
work. Yeah.
you had made a comment about China, so I'll let
Yeah.
you convey that because I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I thought it was good. Like we agreed on this one basis. Like yes,
Yeah. Heavily. Yeah. So, well, there was a, and actually, I don't think I have the link on here, but I think I texted you the link. Um, there was a very unfortunate situation that happened recently in China where 20 plus runners got caught in a really bad storm up in the mountains. There was a big ultra marathon race. That's
yes.
the Chinese
I'm not
marathon group.
ignoring you. I'm pulling this. I'm gonna
Go
add
for
this
it.
to our list so it's there.
Um, the group was participating in, and like terrible situation. Basically, a big storm came in, swept over the running area, and giant, hailstorm, freezing rain, all this stuff, and it killed 20 plus runners. And a lot of people were lost. They couldn't find them. They had hundreds of people, rescue parties out trying to find these marathon runners. And of course, when you see a runner, like they're wearing like like a tank top and like booty shorts basically when they're running.
A tank top
Um,
and barely underwear.
yeah, and barely underwear. So that started the conversation though, because I texted Jordan. I was like, hey, what does this make you think about when you see this? And um,
I
I
honestly
told him,
didn't know because a lot of times you send me things and it's like sarcasm, so I'm like looking at it through like foggy eyes of waking up and trying to
right,
think
yeah,
about
and it
other
was early
things.
because yeah, I was
And I'm
driving to
like,
work. Yeah.
oh, what is he trying to tell me? I don't know.
So,
Um,
but what it made me it made me just start thinking down the line. And this is obviously conspiracy theory stuff, guys. So I'm not saying this is what's happening
oh
completely,
no, that's
but
exactly what you're saying.
But I was, but I was like, how? Like these Chinese people are running in the rain for long miles. They're preparing themselves to invade the Pacific Northwest. Obviously, is what I texted Jordan. Like, obviously, they're planning on invading the Pacific Northwest, right? We're the closest people to them, other than Alaska, right?
Which brought
Um,
up a conversation. I said, there's some cool places if you guys want to look it up and hike. My brother and I hiked one. It's right outside of Seattle, and you can hike up. And there's old anti-aircraft guns that are abandoned now, but they were like during World War II. I believe they even had them up during after that. Thinking,
yeah,
especially after Pearl Harbor, like it's a legit fear. I think it's still a legit fear. We just have better technology to probably do things now. I mean, look at like the whole Iron Dome at in
right in Israel.
so like we probably have something similar to that, if not close. Um, but I was saying like these exist. Like this has been a fear. A ground game would be interesting here in the United States because we're one of the only countries that is armed to the teeth. At least a lot of us. I mean, there's like the last count that I saw was like over 300 million firearms exists in the hands of just the general population. Uh, I think there's a few people that really tilt that over the top as far as averages go. But I was saying it would be interesting, not interesting like I want it to happen, but that might be why they have they have seemed to infiltrate our government trying to go after our Second Amendment rights because if you could disarm the people that would be easier, which started this debate on rights. Um,
Well, so to
Not
go
so
into
much a
that a little
debate,
bit, a
just
conversation.
yeah, a conversation.
Um, But to kind of delve back into that a little bit, we have 300 million plus guns in the United States, roughly. Um, Even so, though, the amount of people that we have in the United States are far less than the amount of people they have in China, right? They have
Right.
two plus, I think two, I think they have like 2+ billion people that live in China, and then
Mm-hmm.
their army is, I think it's like 500 or it's like it's significantly larger than the United States
Well,
Army.
and scary as we found out through like these last elections, they've been training with the Canadian Army just across our border.
Hmm. Right, which is terrifying. Um, so granted, I think there's
So
my like
as of 2018, 2.7 million.
2.7 million armed forces in
Yes,
China.
military.
Is that
That's
what
the
they're saying?
military size.
Okay.
As of
So
2018.
so who knows what that is, 3 years later, maybe,
Yeah.
and obviously the numbers, they're not going to give us specific numbers probably, but
My dad says
um,
too that some of the runners were at 10,000 feet. So for those of you in Oregon, that's like running at the top of the South Sister, which is one of the highest points here. That's
just
and
wild.
I've tried to run up there.
It's
That's
wild.
difficult.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my thoughts are, this is kind of my soapbox. Where I'm concerned is China, I think, is the biggest threat to the world and to the United States specifically for a lot of different reasons. Not the people themselves as much as the government, and the Communist Party.
Right.
Um,
A lot of it's the
and
people have nothing to do with it.
yeah, they don't even they themselves are being controlled and regulated by what they can and can't see, right? I mean, obviously, the craziest thing to me in the entire world of all the drama and the terrible stuff that's going on is that we have a country that has so much power on the industrial scale that they are able to have their own essentially concentration camps in their country, and the world is ignoring it to the point where the United Nations isn't putting any type of restrictions on them. The general public and media is not casting it in a negative light to the degree that you think that it should be when we've already been through a form of concentration camps in this world. So that's just like it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
So that combined with the fact that I think China, although they have I think
China.
honestly China has the potential to have the force to create a ground battle at wherever they want. I think they've actually done a fantastic and very impressive job of doing a covert war against the United States with amplifying social media posts like
Which
Russia
they haven't
has.
been secretive about.
No, or infiltrating our infrastructure. We've found that they have active involvement in parts of our infrastructure and our power infrastructure as well. So it's like a legit threat that I don't think the world actually recognizes. That it's like, out of all the stuff that people are freaking out about in the world, that's the thing that I can't understand why that's not a main focus in my head personally.
Right.
Um,
Which led us down this, hey, I said, very poke the bear right before he goes to work because that's the nice thing to do, right?
because
You
I
got
can't reply when I'm working.
you
I'm
got
like,
to make
son of a.
sure that you get that jab in, right? I said, hey, if you're for rights, because I'm totally with you. Like I feel for those people, and I feel like they are equal in value and equal in their worth and their potential in our world. And I'm with you that needs to happen. But if you're for that, you need to be for all rights. And I heard this said best when I took a concealed carry class. The guy that was teaching was an old police officer, old retired guy. And he said he refused to say gun rights, which at first I was like, whoa, this is weird. This guy that's all for guns, he refuses to say gun rights, right? But he went on to explain, and it was very astute of him. He said, I don't say gun rights because it's not about gun rights. It's about rights. And that's what our country is about preserving rights. And so I don't want to battle someone whether or not they like guns. Some people may not like them, and I'm okay with that. But what I want to preserve is people's rights. And so he wants everyone to be, he's like, imagine if we're on the same team. I mean, that's like to fight back against a machine that might be infiltrated by this government that wants ultimate control over people and ultimate control over the world. Really, they want to be the next superpower. They've said that. They've openly said their goal was like 2030 or 2035. And so, like, China's trained with Canadian Army? Yes, Aunt Deb, that happened. Go look it up. Rebel News talks all about it. Um, and so I was saying, like, if we all got on the same page about rights and like whatever it is, like preserving people's rights, um, imagine where we could go. Like we would be unstoppable as a people. And today, I sat down and I haven't read this in a while, but I went through and read the Bill of Rights and read like the Constitution and the first few amendments that were brought with the Constitution. And it's interesting to me that that is sort of under attack right now, but and kind of like being perpetuated through people to say you should attack this. But I think a lot of people haven't sat down and read it because it's changed and it was written as a living document. And so people are like, well, it created slavery and everything. Well, at the time there was slavery pretty much everywhere in the world, and there's slavery still pretty much everywhere in the world now, which is sad and sucks and shouldn't be there. And like we're talking about China, like a lot of those people are living in a slave type environment. But the times that it's been corrected and amended was because people realized, oh crap, we screwed up, and they gave more rights. And then it's like, oh crap, we screwed up. So all the amendments are like, oh crap, we screwed up. And then there's one that actually shows up and removes rights, which was the prohibition. I think it was like the 11th Amendment or something like that. And then it was amended to add rights back. But every other time has been not to take away people's rights, but has been to give rights, because when it was written, it was said, these are rights that are given by whatever creator you believe in, and you're born with them. And the role of government is to preserve them and to protect them. And I thought,
So
man, we need to
in
learn
that,
about that more.
yes, rights. And so that kind of, the conversation, we weren't able to extrapolate a ton from that at that point because I had to go to work. But pertaining to rights, that's an interesting conversation because our rights are unique to our country, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have specific rights in our Bill of Rights
Right.
that allow us certain freedoms, and that other countries don't necessarily have those classified rights.
And they're
Um,
explained differently, though, which is why, like they say in the course of human events, there are certain inalienable rights that are given by a natural creator. So it doesn't necessarily name a god or a religion. It just says
in their opinion.
essentially you're born with these, and they define them to pursue life, liberty, and happiness.
And those, but granted, those were rights that men created that they found to be unalienable. Like these are the rights that everybody should
Right.
have, is what they
As
believed at that time,
yeah, they
right?
sat down and said, what if people were to live free and weren't ruled by a government, because government isn't like it's a newer idea in the world. If people just lived free, what how would they live? What would the rights be that they were born with? And they named them.
Um, so pertaining to the
Oh my
your
gosh.
that's very interesting. Very interesting. Your dad said that majority of the 19.8 million of the current weapons or guns, not guns, what do you call firearms, right? Are
Mm-hmm.
AR-15s. So 19.8 million of them are AR-15s, where there's 434 firearms they estimate in the
434
United States.
million
Yeah, 434 million, and
in civilian
19.8 of
possession.
those are AR-15. Now that doesn't mean specifically like the. Does it mean assault rifles specifically, or does it mean
So AR
yep,
does not stand for assault rifle. AR stands for Armalite rifle,
American?
which was the original maker of that type of style, and that is now like licensed out that other people can make that style, that military style. Um,
So what's very interesting, though, pertaining to rights, this is kind of going a little bit around the subject, but also I
mhm.
think it's an important thing we need to talk about. Have you been listening to the news, or anybody out there? Have you guys been listening to the news pertaining to the NRA lately?
Little bit
Okay,
like they're
so I'd like
moving.
to talk. I'd like to talk about that because whatever your stance on the NRA, um, it's fine. Like whether you are like saying like, yeah, I think it's really important. They help to promote the right to bear arms. Like they're a big proponent of that. Or whether you are against the NRA, you feel like they basically are just a form of Republican Party to get whatever candidate in they want to. There's different people that view it differently. The issue with the NRA lately is that lately they filed for bankruptcy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the NRA filed for bankruptcy. Their charter is based out of New York, and they've been around actually. I didn't know this, but they've been around the NRA.
For
It's
a
like
long time.
hundred and I don't
It's like
want to say
10.
120, but I think it's
It's
close
been
to
110 or
120 years.
112 years. It's quite a while.
It's quite a while, right? Um,
Their main
but they,
museum is in, I think it's Virginia.
I think, well, New York is like their main hub
Right,
technically.
but their main
Um,
like spot because that was like right by where everything was founded.
right. So here's my deal. I'm all for promoting our rights, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But the NRA classifies themselves as a um, as a what is it? What
Nonprofit.
do you call it? Nonprofit. There you go. Thank you. My gosh, nonprofit organization. Okay,
Right.
so here's what's been happening with them. Their leader, this has had basically been under investigation due to allegations of mismanagement
Mm-hmm.
of NRA funds. So there were several things that took place, and I see this trend with these types of organizations, nonprofits, where when you get to the executive level and the board level, there's a gross misuse of the funds are not based on what the charter of those organizations are. And so unfortunately, there's been quite a bit of evidence showing the misuse of funds by this director of the NRA. And so the NRA is concerned about certain legal ramifications of this, and they are now trying to move from New York to Texas, to A, because they want to try to get out of the regulations that New York City can place on their organization.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fine. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good opportunity and a good time for the NRA and nonprofits in general to recognize the damage of misuse of funds from, especially when you get to this large of a level, because it's creating. They showed over the past year they spent over $100 million on legal fees because of the basically the negative ramifications of misappropriation of funds.
Well,
So, for example,
yeah.
this guy, the leader, like they tried to qualify like why he did certain things with NRA funds. So, like it was like several weeks in the Bahamas on a private yacht, um, and he classified it as like a business expense. And then he did another thing where it was he got on him and his whole family went on safaris in Africa, and he said it was basically like it was to promote the NRA when it wasn't necessarily
Siri woke
proven
up
that.
over there. I don't know how.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, did.
Yeah. It was really
So
weird.
I'm just saying, I have a really hard time. I see across like I understand someone in an executive level can make a good wage because they make the business money. I
Right.
get that, but also I think there's kind of a bloated misuse of funds across most organizations or a lot of nonprofits. And when you get to this national level, I think you just got to be more careful with that. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think so. Number one, I would say a little bit of pushback without knowing much about it. I do know that they get targeted by people that hate them, and there's a lot of targeted going on from both sides right now to try and like either drain or defund or whatever. But I would say a lot of organizations, the problem that they have, and you see this like honestly, and I don't want to like draw too much attention to it, but you see it like in churches. I've seen it specifically. I've been a part of it. It draws a certain type of personality potentially, not always,
Mm.
that
In leadership.
gets a little power hungry.
Oh, that's interesting.
So at those levels, it's not just nonprofits; it's any business.
Yeah,
And
but
so
nonprofits have the responsibility of being a little bit more like
I would agree.
obviously not profit, right?
I would agree. But we see this now in leaders of like larger businesses that are under fire for like freedom of speech, like we talked about Twitter and Facebook and all that. And a lot of
Mhm.
times they go before the Senate, which is supposed to be like the head, you know judiciary, not judiciary, but you know what I'm saying, like they are to make some of these calls on some of these regulations and stuff, and they're just like acting as though they don't have any power. So you get these people in these places of power that sometimes shouldn't be there. We had a little bit of conversation that before we went live. Like sometimes you recognize like maybe this isn't the right person for this, and it sucks when it happens to an organization like this, especially when they're under fire from the other side that
Right.
are
That's
saying
that's
like,
the important thing.
and
That's what
so
that's
and it
that's what I'm
sucks too
hitting
because
on.
I don't want to bring like a negative light to churches and stuff because we have a freedom of religion in this country, um, and I think that people should be able to go and practice in worship or however they should. Unfortunately, a lot of churches get caught up in that too. The Catholic Church gets caught up in that. I don't think it means that all Catholic people are bad, but I would say it seems to be like a lot of the leaders tend to have some issues, and it should be looked at so that there needs to be more transparency. And I think
Transparency, yeah.
honestly, like you come down to like all this stuff, like I was talking to someone about this the other day, like open source, like open source software, open source hardware, where you can see what it is, you can see into it. Like there's a lot of things that could be solved like this. So I was having a discussion with someone about vaccine hesitancy. That if you guys want to go watch something very enlightening, is Project Veritas came out with a video today on Facebook and their transparency of vaccine hesitancy and how they're grading people behind the scenes and destroying what people are saying. Not saying like, hey, I'm an anti-vaxxer and going, all stripper writing a book about vaccines when they're not a doctor on people, but just saying like, hey, I heard about this and it concerns me. Trying to make their own well-informed decision, and Facebook is blocking it. So
Well,
I think a lot of these things that we talk about, like the election, we talk about people and the COVID vaccine going around right now. Why not transparency? Why not open source it, make it so everyone can see it, and make
did
it
you
so
see
that
that Biden was pushing for that?
they're
That
not
so
pushing fast enough.
the pharmacies he actually said that he's voting for that to happen because certain like companies like that produce it, right? They want to make a
Hmm.
profit on the patent, right?
Right.
But he was saying that he's going to make it a law, or he was pushing for that to be required within the United States because other countries that have less income, they want them to be able to use that. And I was like, hey, that's commendable. I think that's actually
Yeah.
a
So, but
reasonable
I
thing.
mean, in that whole process, because it's like, okay, here's we talked about this the other day. Like, um, there's a TikTok thing going around right now where people stick magnets on their COVID vaccine site. Right. It's crazy. I thought it was crazy. Started asking a couple people about it. So far, I don't have a ton of friends who've taken the vaccine, but two of them it sticks. So I start to go Google. I'm like, I want to know an answer to this. I'm not like I think you're getting microchipped because I understand how silicone works and that it's non-ferrous. So like I'm like I just am curious. Maybe there's an answer out there that answers this. You know what I found? Pages and pages and pages of reputable pages telling people it's a lie. They're using glue or skin oil to make it stick and it doesn't actually stick. And I'm
Well,
like, but I've
so
sat there with a magnet on one and it pulls the skin. And I'm like,
so let me put the tinfoil hat on here real quick.
yes.
So the tinfoil hat, right, is when individuals are saying like, okay, I get the shot and now I have magnets sticking to where I have the injection site at. That's basically what the concern is. And they're saying maybe they're putting something like a microchip in me or some type of metallic something. I don't know what the metallic thing would be that they would be injecting them with, but something like
I
that
don't know.
that's concerning for them. But what I was talking with Jordan is my answers for it were, and this actually is something that I had encountered before COVID and before vaccines like became as hot of a topic
Right.
to this degree. And I had actually had people ask this question because it had been floating around in circulation before COVID. So my thoughts are, I do think that in certain situations you can have increased blood flow to the area. Obviously, can get inflammation. Sometimes you can form coagulation in that area, and then you get extra iron. Potentially, you could have increased, I guess, maybe some type of increased magnetic potential to that.
Mm-hmm.
But then the other thing that I mean, our bodies do have a degree of magnetism to them. And so if you have the right setting, the right type of magnetic application where there's more blood or more coagulation under that tissue, if you had a significant reaction, maybe that's what's causing it to stick to it as well.
So I'm fine with that answer. Like, I'm totally cool with that answer. My issue is, going back to the open source thing, is why are all these reputable news places saying this is fake, people are lying to you, and even like doctors writing about it saying it can't happen, it's not possible, because that just makes me doubt what they're saying. Even it pushes the hesitancy instead of helping the hesitancy, is what I'm saying. Is like, if someone
well,
can actually, if
that's a
so,
great question, Jordan.
so if
Yeah.
someone can actually do it, and then you say they're lying, but I'm sitting there on two different vaccine sites for the same person, and it sticks only on those spots, and I'm
Okay.
going, why don't you say we don't
Dude,
know?
I think
Or,
this is a great question, and I think I have a good example or good answer for this. Again, you guys, I'm putting my tinfoil hat on. This is just what
well, first off,
this is
if
what I'm
if this is
concerned
an
about.
answer as to what it is, but like, I guess my question,
No. It's not a question to what it is.
okay, but my question is, why would you push more hesitancy by saying people are
Yes.
lying because they can do it?
Yes, exactly. I agree with you. So this is my answer to why something like that maybe potentially could be pushed. Okay. Um, and actually, not just with this, but in general, multiple issues being pushed
Mm-hmm.
on social media, on the news, whether it's on either extreme. Okay.
Right.
So I wrote this analogy down. This is a good analogy that I had seen. And actually, this is apparently true. I didn't know this, though. So listen to this, guys. If you collect 100 black ants, okay, and 100 red ants, and you put them in a glass jar, they're not going to attack each other. And this is, I didn't know this, but apparently they won't fight each other.
Right.
But if you take that same jar with the ants in it and you shake it really hard, and then you put it on the table, the ants are going to attack each other and they're going to try to kill each other. The red ants are going to, and the black ants are going to attack the opposite color ant because they think that they're the enemy because something's going wrong. They think the
Right.
other color is causing it, right? But it wasn't the ant, it was whoever shook the jar. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the same thing's happening in society right now. This sounds crazy, I know, but I think legit China's behind this. I'm just saying. But I think that the same thing is going on in society right now. I think men versus women, left versus right, rich versus poor, faith versus science, gossip, rumors, etc., whatever. I think someone is shaking the jar, and I think that it's causing a meltdown and a significant weakening of our society.
Yeah.
I think that's an
I
answer
would
to that.
agree, but like, these types of things are the things that make me, at the end of the day, they give me more questions than answers. And I think
Yeah.
but for me, so I would classify myself as, hesitant towards anything that I'm going to put in my body, because I want to see what it is. Like, what are the risks? What's risk reward? And that's fine. Like, I think most people, they just need to, and that was kind of where I went with the whole China thing. I was like, if you are for fighting for those people's rights, you might have to rethink the whole, like, our forced vaccine conversation. Like,
But who
I,
is forced to get the COVID vaccine?
there's a lot of people whose jobs are now trying to force them. In Oregon, they're working now with Moda Center to create different vaccines seating for those who will show their vaccine cards and those who will not. So when was the last time that we had people having to show proof of papers in order to partake in something? I mean,
Schools
right. I would even argue, but even then, there are ways to
or
opt
or
out
drive
of that.
driving a car.
Right, but that's not a right. So just
Yeah,
to
it's
for
not a
something.
right to go to
No.
Moda Center.
It's not, but it is to go and do commerce. So it is to go out in public. It is a right to assemble. It is a right. So there's all these other things that are rights, that I can go out and do free commerce. I can go out and partake in these types of things. I can go out and make an income. And also, let's just trickle back. It isn't. It still is not FDA certified. It's still just under emergency use. So they still say on FDA site, I went and checked just yesterday or the day before, that they can't verify that anything works. They're still doing further testing. It is only released as, currently, their words, an experiment. And so that's fine. If someone wants to do it, I believe they should have the right to do it. And if they don't, then they shouldn't. But we have these. Our honestly, our state is one of the most crazy when it comes to it. A lot of the other states are just like, we're not doing that. And but you have to give someone that right. So you can't say like, well, you have the right to go out, but if you get this.
Well, I agree with you to part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that that the FDA hasn't shown that it is effective. They have shown that the people there they you can actually go on the FDA site and see the links, the citations to the PubMed studies
No. I know,
of the
but
people
their
that the
statement
vaccine
says
has actually been
it
effective
may.
on and worked.
So they put in may for a
Well, yeah,
reason.
but I mean, of course, no vaccine is
Mm-hmm.
100%. They do the same thing for the previous influenza vaccines. They wouldn't say it's 100%.
Right.
Or they would still say it may help decrease it, but they wouldn't, and then they'll say the percentages with the
Right.
previous
But then
vaccines.
also so the reason why the flu vaccine is not forced is because there are therapeutics for it, and you may not be at risk. You may not be in a
There are
risk group.
therapeutics.
And so,
Well,
but
and
there's
even those
and there's
therapeutics aren't
no,
that great
but
sometimes.
but it's not a forced thing, and it's a seasonal thing.
Well, it kind of is though. So it depends on where you work. So like in hospitals, if you don't get the flu vaccine, and you get sick,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not allowed to go to work, and you don't get whatever the paid time off is. So like if you don't get the flu vaccine, there's those qualifications. Like so that was around before COVID.
Yeah,
That
it
that
was,
aspect.
but I would say that is approved by the FDA, not in an EUA.
Yeah, I mean I think it's just something that will
And
come with time.
and honestly, I don't see them passing that for a while. Like they're gonna cover their
I
butts.
would say, yeah, I think the FDA, I would wager by the end of this year, I would wager. They'll have enough of a
Maybe.
data set to be able to say with their standards. I bet they will.
But with that said, because it's not, and we're not talking about like polio or something like that. Like I'm not saying that you should go out and just refuse all vaccines. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying for these types of vaccines where it is something that's like I had COVID, I slept for a day. Like I understand the risks, but also I can look at the data and see if I had COVID and I take it, I am at a higher risk of having an adverse reaction to it now that I have those antibodies in my system statistically.
Wait, say that again. Sorry,
I'm at
wasn't
a
listening.
higher risk to have a higher adverse reaction to taking the COVID vaccine because I've had COVID.
I have not seen that, and I would be interested to see your data on that. I've given, I don't know, I haven't given them personally. I've ordered,
Yeah.
but I've seen thousands of people that have gotten the vaccine, and I've never seen a correlation with somebody that's had the vaccine and previously had COVID had more of
Yeah.
an adverse reaction.
I'm going off of like some epidemiologists that I've listened to and shown like the data and how the vaccine works, and like this is why you have a 2 to 3 times higher chance of having an adverse reaction if you've had COVID.
Maybe I would see that with the Johnson and Johnson because of the type of virus
Mm-hmm.
vector that they use for that. But I can't see how that would work with the mRNA. But
It's
I would
how
I'd be happy to see
it's
that
how the
information.
it's how the spike proteins are created. Like because I have the antibodies and because my body already knows how to react to it when it recognizes it, I I have a higher chance of having a reaction to it because my body is going to go into overdrive because it has already seen it before. So
Maybe I guess it's possible, but I would wager that's not a propensity.
yeah.
I would wager.
Anyway, I also know how now I react to COVID, and I don't really need the vaccine because I know how I react to it.
So, but to be objective, right? You never got tested to say that you actually had it,
No, but
right?
my whole house did, and I got sick with a fever for the day.
Okay, so
So
to
either
switch
I
a
got
little
something
bit
different.
towards
Anyway.
towards the health side of things,
Mm-hmm.
this is something really cool that I wanted to talk about. Um, Cool for me, maybe not as cool for other people, but it just when I see these types of studies, it kind of gets me excited. Um, a really cool new drug has come out recently for Parkinson's. Because I surprisingly have known quite a few people that have Parkinson's.
I have two.
Um, yeah, and it's a really
One of them
crappy
drove a
disease.
DeLorean.
Really?
Yeah,
Wait.
he went through time with Doc Brown,
Oh. Kit. What's his name? What's
Michael
his
J.
name? His real
Fox.
name? Michael J. Fox. Yeah, good guy. Um. So
You know him too?
yes, of course. So let me just do a little pathophysiology for Parkinson's for everybody, real quick. So Parkinson's essentially is a disease where your body has a depletion of dopamine, and the dopamine helps with body functions and certain movements, and even eventually, autonomic systems where you're like you're breathing, you're swallowing, that sort of thing, right? So there's a drug that they give people, an oral pill, and that drug is uh, called levodopa, basically. So it's a type of pill that your body absorbs, and then it breaks it down to allow your body to increase the excretion of dopamine. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what happens is eventually over time you start to acclimate to that levodopa pill, that medication, and it becomes less effective over time
Gotcha.
because your body builds a sensitivity to it, which is a real bummer because then your Parkinson's usually progresses and gets worse. So lately, a new drug that's come out, which is really promising, is a new nasal spray, levodopa, that basically gets shot straight up the nose, okay?
Ooh.
And it or a spray up the nose, and then it absorbs really close to the vessels that then actually cross right next to the blood-brain barrier. So they're seeing that using the nasal spray inhibits or prevents the risk factors of your gut basically breaking down and wasting a lot of the drug. So they're
Just
seeing
a
that this
lot of
is,
drugs are and supplements are that way too. Like they're
yeah,
they're not actually good to take orally or yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And the thing with levodopa and dopamine in particular is that if you can't be giving yourself like IV injections of it, um, because there's a couple reasons of it for that. But so at home at least. So this is just another treatment option that's really encouraging for Parkinson's. And then the other thing I wanted to say real quick on the healthcare side of things, which I'm excited about, is recently we've talked about with people trying to restore blind individuals to be able to see again. And we've talked about like Elon Musk using different types of Neuralink and all these different optic implants and all this stuff.
Making pigs
But
see
they've
again.
making pics, yeah. But what's cool is they've actually recently, recent case study came out, and they injected biological agents and stem cells into a person's eye, the nerve cells, um, and they were able to do it through a kind of a combination of stem cells and a engineered virus into the eye, into the actual I can't remember exactly what part of the eye they injected it into.
I've
But
heard of this. At least a different study where they were injecting a virus into the eye to like
yeah,
make it come back
but
again.
this one is like the most effective. This guy had been blind for decades, and he was actually able to see small objects like a staple box, a notebook.
Why do I always
Um,
pick the most random things to show them first?
I know,
They're
yeah,
like, "Hey, can you see this?" He's like, "Is that a staple remover?" It's like, why is that the first thing
yeah,
you would show me? Like, that's
yeah.
the
It's like in
dumbest.
my.
It's
They're
like,
obviously
show
sitting
me
in someone's
something
office,
cool. Like,
right?
like
They're sitting in
here's a
someone's office,
baby,
obviously.
or
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like, like, sorry, that's all we could have. We didn't think it would work, and this is all we had. It's just
So
standard office supplies.
so funny. Yeah. So, anyways, that was kind of like a really cool thing. I wanted to ask you though, Jordan. I
Hmm.
saw a link and I wanted to get more information from you.
Yeah.
Um,
If it's a
I didn't
link
get
of
to read a
mine,
ton of it.
I maybe didn't read
Hmm.
it. But you
Oh
can
no.
ask me. No,
Okay.
no, you can ask me. I'm just joking. I probably did read
It
it.
was a Elon Musk link that you had, and it had to do
Mm.
with yeah, Musk's Twitter and tweet. My theory about how one man may have ended everything. Did you look into that?
So I did. This was due to there was a sudden crypto crash this last week that
Hmm.
that Bitcoin went like down to like tested the 33 mark, which is honestly about like its strongest marking right now if you know how to read how the market
Like, it's a
runs.
good base. It's a good floor for it.
It's a good floor, and it didn't dip below that, and now it's back up to like 38.2 or something like that, and it's slowly climbing. And he had made a statement about um, about them taking Bitcoin for cars, and he said we're not going to for now because Bitcoin is wrecking the environment because of the way that it mines and the energy that it uses, and until they fix that, we're not going to use it. Which, on the surface, you're like, oh, that makes sense. But then it doesn't, because you have to back up a little bit. Elon's not a stupid guy. He knew all that before they said they were going to use Bitcoin, right? Cryptocurrency so
Right.
far is not it's not regulated by the SEC. Like they have not defined it.
It's not insured either by
Yeah,
the
so
FDIC.
there was a lawsuit against XRP or Ripple,
Right.
if you follow it,
Yeah.
to say that it was a security. And if so, then every single transaction that they had, they were liable for this lawsuit and all this kind of stuff. And things kind of took a dip then. Anyway, he said things about Dogecoin. He went on SNL. He talked about Dogecoin, which is just another cryptocurrency. And then he makes a statement about Bitcoin. SEC can't touch him for it because
Because it's not
it's
regulated.
not regulated,
Yeah.
right? So he can say whatever he wants about cryptocurrency. Tomorrow he could say, it sucks, and then the next day he could say it's great, and they could
Hmm.
just he could manipulate the market if he wanted to. And obviously, if he did that enough, it probably would cause some problems in some other countries, and he's not going to do that very much. But we all know that Elon Musk absolutely hates, with a passion, the shorts markets because they
Yeah.
tried to wreck him, and they tried to do that.
And explain what that is to the people a little bit.
So that's when people they basically make a bet that the market's going to go down. But sometimes they'll make a giant bet enough to influence the market to try and get it to dip. And they did that to Tesla stock a few years back.
Yes.
He hated them for it. And he says, this needs to be regulated. This needs to have this is out of control. This needs to be taken care of. Well, there's still a short squeeze going on AMC and Google and GameStop stonks. The people there's still people out there. You go read the comments. They're like, I'm holding till I die. Hold until it's 100,000. Hold until it's 1,000. Hold until it's 1,000,000. There's all these people that are crazy. All these numbers that probably are never going to happen. But when those were leveraged, they were about 140% that people were betting against them, saying we think they're going to go down. And all these people jumped on it and said, no, it's not. And they pretty much bought all the stocks. Well, the same day that he said Bitcoin's going down, or I'm not going to take Bitcoin anymore, guess what happened? It started to drop, and all those retail investors jumped over to a few of those regular stocks, and AMC made another jump up,
Yep.
which costs a
And
bunch of money to the shorts markets again because they still haven't paid back their stuff, and it's still going up as we speak now.
which
And
I
so
love that.
what
I
people
love
are
that AMC's
what
going
people
up.
are saying is they think that he did the only legal way he could do it to make a comment, knowing crypto will come back. He's still in it. He's still got billions in it. He didn't pull any of his money out. He said we still have he even said we still have our positions in Bitcoin, which if you go look, they would have lost a significant amount of money, or not lost. If they sold, they would have lost, but they would have gone down in a lot of money by him saying that. So he's got to have some faith that it's going to level back out again. But it's like the only way he could legally say, hey, go put some money into AMC and really screw these guys over.
Well, the thing that's interesting to me is that people would short AMC at this point seems silly to me.
They're
Because
not. They're still in it. They still haven't paid it back. They did it at the beginning, and they still have not returned their shares.
which is crazy. That's what I'm saying. Like,
It's
I
because
think
it's so
AMC
high.
is only
They
gonna.
were betting on it going down to like 2.5. And
I don't think it will though anymore.
No, I don't think
stuff's
it will
opening
either.
back up.
And that's where they're screwed. But he's pushing it even higher. That's what's
Yeah.
crazy about that.
Yeah, yeah. I think AMC is a very reasonable stock now. Only because life eventually, people are going to want to watch these big box thrillers in a big theater eventually again.
Yeah.
I think I could be wrong, but that's my personal opinion.
So I would say on the rights thing, and this probably won't. We'll go into something a little lighter hearted, but it was something I wanted to touch on because it was a thought I had the other night. And you could tell me I'm crazy. I'm totally fine with that. The reason why I don't think that any vaccines should be forced is simple. Number one, for me, it's just a rights issue. If someone wants to choose it. And there's certain things that I think you should choose. Like, I honestly think that seatbelts should be a choice. It's stupid if you don't wear a seatbelt, but I think it should be a choice. I think it should be.
Do you think speed limits should be a choice?
I do, because you could be infringing on someone else's safety. So I think finding an area that's the
Oh,
most
you don't
safe.
think they should be a choice?
Speed limits, no. Yeah, but if I fly out of a window, I potentially could hurt my family. Um, but if I fly out of a window, it's kind of my choice to be dumb. Like, you should probably wear a helmet on a motorcycle. It's a great idea, but I don't necessarily think it should be a law that someone does it, because it's just them. They're not infringing on someone else's rights to do that. So when you force a vaccine, we all know, regardless of how safe they are, there is still some inherent risks. So if you force someone to take something, and like, even if you say, like, I asked a guy, it was like, how long before you think it's safe for someone to not have the COVID vaccine or to go out in public and not wear masks? And he said 0 deaths. I'm like, well, dude, you're never going to get that. I'm sorry. Like, that's just not even a statistical possibility. But if you force someone to take the vaccine, say it's 1 in a million people dies or gets really sick from it, right? Because we know there are risks, even if they're small, and you force them to take it, you are effectively, even if say it works, say it does what it's supposed to do, and it keeps you from spreading it to someone who's older, and you are a jerk that didn't take it and you spread it, right? Although they can't claim that, they don't have any studies on that yet. If you force someone to take it and they die, they lose their life over you forcing them to take it, and they didn't choose to take it, they took it because they had to, you're effectively trading their life for someone else's that you are saying is more important than theirs. And that I have a problem with at a
I think it
macro
depends
level.
on the severity. Yeah, I guess it just depends on the severity of the situation, as far as depending on risk factors. I think that there's situations where, like, granted, this isn't that the case, but Ebola, let's talk about Ebola situations, where there's a very high lethality
Mm-hmm.
level to it, right? And so, granted, maybe you don't require individuals to get the vaccine, but in situations like Ebola, where you have to contain it,
Oh,
like
no,
you
no,
have to contain it,
I'm not arguing
then
that.
then I think you either choose to get the vaccine or you lose certain rights, because you do have a potential for killing a large number of people because of the level of lethality and how easily it spreads. So I think it
Do we
depends on
take
the
a vaccine for
situation.
that?
They have an
I don't even
mRNA.
know.
That's where mRNA
But
came
see, like,
into
we know, like,
with
what.
Ebola.
So, like, there have been small outbreaks of that or whatever, and when there are a certain amount per year that are the United States, we know how to handle it. So, I didn't think, as
But
far
I
as I
think
know, that
you
it's one that
lose
we.
certain rights in that situation.
But we don't get an Ebola vaccine now. So do you vaccinate for every little thing that could hurt someone else, or do
During
we
the
or do we or
outbreaks.
do we live in a free society that has
No,
risks?
but I'm saying, like, in a situation, if there was an Ebola like disease,
But
I think there
I
you would
guess
have
what
to
I'm saying
consider
is
that.
we're not facing that. We know the death rates. In fact, if you go look at Oregon's crunch the numbers, it's like, you actually, by the
Right.
people that were hospitalized with the vaccine, 0.02%
But what
more
I'm saying is, what I
die
think I need
with
you
it
to
than without.
recognize, and what I want you to agree with me on here, is that there has to be a situation. It's not black and white, where every single situation is, no matter what, nobody can actually have requirements on them to either get a vaccine or lose certain rights. I think there are situations where that qualifies for that.
Maybe, but I don't think
Yeah.
this one's one. And so I'm saying, like,
Well, and that, but
you
that's
have to
not.
be careful and weigh the vaccine, because if you're forcing everyone to get it and there's a risk, and you're telling them, sorry, you're screwed, you have to take this risk, and they don't choose it themselves. So the employers are facing this right now. If you are an employer that requires this vaccine that hasn't been fully approved yet, and it's still under emergency use, and you get hurt, you can sue your employer for forcing it. Did you know
Well,
that?
I think that the
Because
situation pertaining to this current outbreak, this current disease, is not as much of a concern for me, in my, like, ethical standpoint, as if there's a situation where it should be required. And I think there are circumstances, but
that
I'm not saying
you
it is
could
for
make
this
an
situation.
argument for that, but in this case, like we already know, it's
But
not.
what I do need to say is, Josh Crane made a comment
I saw that. Yes.
pertaining to theaters, and he said theaters died from COVID. Everyone said that, basically. We'll say that in 2026.
Yes.
Maybe. I hope not, because I have so much fun going to movie theaters. Um,
Wait, where did he
but
say that? I don't even see that comment.
oh, you didn't see that? He said it up higher. He said
Oh, way back.
theaters died from COVID. everyone in 2026. I hope that doesn't happen, Josh, but it might. I don't know, man. I hope not.
I would say there's a lot of very nervous people in Hollywood that are saying, please go back to the theaters. And see, that's the thing is like, there's a lot of people like, I to be honest, like once Oregon was like, hey, if you're, you don't have to wear a mask if you're fully vaccinated. And I consider myself that because I had it. And also I am fully vaccinated with approved vaccines. So,
well, actually,
they just ask.
That's a different thing.
But there's a lot of people who are that just are still walking around with a mask.
I'm not trying to, but I want to address this comment that Josh made.
Yeah. The seatbelts
he made a comment. Yeah, pertaining to seatbelts.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Said that he doesn't think seatbelts should be mandated, but I do agree that as technology changes, I think laws need to adjust.
He said
to
they should be.
well.
Seatbelts should be mandated by law enforcement because it's a safety measure for being on the highway for current technology.
No. Yeah, but what I'm saying is when technology changes, laws will need to acclimate to that as well to either remove certain laws. That's the problem I feel like too, is like we have so many laws in situations, but we're hesitant to remove laws, but we're more willing to put laws in.
Yeah.
My
I would say to the seatbelt thing, like I would say if you're an adult, which actually used to be that in Oregon, if you were over 16 or 18 or whatever, you could choose. But kids, they mandate it. I think that's a smart idea. It's because you're protecting the child. They found that it's safer if they're buckled in.
Agreed.
So I would say if there were no seatbelt laws, it should be for an adult that knows and is making the decision to be a dummy. Whatever, like be a dummy. Like
it's a fair perspective.
So, and there's probably 1,000 arguments for that, but like I guess the more that I read, the more that I look at things, I'm like, and I would say to those of you who might be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would say that. It was like, there's a lot of areas that I've grown in that I would say I would fight to protect your rights to live the way that you want to. As long as you're not hurting someone else and infringing someone else's rights, you have the right to live that way, whatever that may be. If you want to be a non-binary unicorn, I'm fine with that. Like, it's like, that's your choice. I may not know what that is, but I'll smile and say, I'm glad you have the freedom to do so.
I think there will be regulations though with different safeties. Like, I think there will be regulations that will continue to.
Well, there are now. I mean, there's
continue in life.
They with cars, they have to be made with certain bars. They have to be made with certain airbags. So it's buses, you don't need seatbelts. Where that's the one place you probably need them. Like like if I roll over in my car, I don't have a lot of places to go. If I roll over in a bus, my goodness, it's like a salt shaker. Like that has never made any sense to me. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I think all small airplanes should have parachutes. That doesn't make sense to me why they don't, but
I think there should be a parachute vending machine at the top of tall buildings.
Ooh! Would that actually encourage people to jump off buildings then?
No. For situations, where maybe a plane runs into them.
Well, if they want to kill themselves, then they're not going to want.
Actually, it's an investment venture that I have because all of a sudden they don't go for sale until it's an emergency, and then they're like $10,000 a pop.
Well, in Japan, they have all those big nets that they now put out at the end.
That's because people are jumping off. I'm saying with Twin Towers situations. Imagine if you had the option.
Oh, yeah.
If you had the option to buy a parachute, or
that's actually a good point. That's a good point. Oh man, dude, let's do some TILs, buddy.
I'm down.
Let's hit up some tills.
Josh did say something about Tesla. Since we love Tesla. He and I have had this conversation quite a few times, is that Tesla's safety isn't able to get on the charts, the 5-star system. They basically blow up. And the safety difference between those, it's bonkers. If you guys want to see some crazy compilations, go watch Tesla's avoiding accidents, where they beep and steer the person out of the way and save their lives. It's nuts.
No, but I think Josh is saying they're not safe.
No, they are.
I think.
Yeah.
No, wait. No, he's saying that crazy. He's saying Tesla isn't able to get on the charts because they're
not
blow
even
up.
No, they're not. No, they're not
oh,
even.
No. He's saying they're better
so
than the
far
5-star.
above the 5-star system does not even rank them because
sorry, Josh,
because they're so unbelievably safe. It's ridiculous.
Yes, Right.
Yes.
they outperformed all the
And
safety
there are like
regulations.
these crazy compilations where all of a sudden the car will like it's like "Dit-dit-dit-dit-dit," and you can see the car start to steer and you're like, what is it steering? And then you see a car run a red light right in front of them. And the car was like stopping and steering out of the way of the car, and it saw the car about to run red light and you couldn't
Yeah.
even see it. It's
I know.
nuts.
It's wild. It's the best feeling ever driving those cars. My gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
Say
gonna
what you
hit
want
with
about
our
electricity, the technology they put into those things is ridiculous.
very impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive. All right. Let's see. My first TIL. TIL.
He said blow up
Today,
again.
I
It's
know.
like
I saw it.
maybe you shouldn't use blow up with
It's
the
confusing.
Teslas.
It's confusing.
You're just confusing
It's
us.
a little
Okay.
confusing.
Yeah. Today I learned you.
Today I learned that dandelions are called pissenlit. Pissenlit in French, which means piss the bed, because the tea made from their roots is a powerful diuretic.
Oh my gosh.
I had no idea dandelions would help you pee.
What is it
It's
called
wild.
again? Pissin root?
Pissenlit,
Oh.
which means piss in the bed, diuretic. Get some dandelions. If any of you guys out there have some swollen prostates, go get
Dandelions
some
might do it.
dandelion. Go get some dandelion tea. It happens to the best of us guys.
Have you ever eaten dandelions?
No.
I mean, I guess
Have
they're
you?
edible. Like most of us spray things. You probably shouldn't eat them if you sprayed them with stuff. But I've heard they're
Yeah,
very good for you. I don't.
Not Roundup, maybe.
Yeah, don't eat. Please don't eat glyphosate. It's not good for you. Yeah. Okay. Today I learned when Nathan's famous hot dogs, which by the way are really really good, first opened in 1916, probably right along the NRA. The owner hired people to dress as doctors and eat hot dogs outside his shop to convince people that his hot dogs were healthy.
No, that's genius. That's so smart. So smart. Josh says the correct pronunciation of the dandelion is pissenlit or pissenlit. That's what he's.
Yeah, I can go with that.
Could be. I'll take it. Also, Josh, that reminds me.
Oh, the young ones are good. Someone's eating them.
Someone's eating those.
Good
Someone's
job,
eating those.
Greg. Good job.
Josh, Jordan tells me he has a meeting with you coming up. I want to join you at that meeting. I'll send you a text.
I gave him some deets, Josh. So there you go.
Okay. So let's see.
Today
Where were we at? What was the last one? Today I learned that the U.S. I had no idea. The U.S. is a rice producing country and is one of the top rice exporters in the world. Rice in the U.S. Did you know that?
No. Where?
In the U.S., we are one of the top.
Do you know
I
where?
I don't know where. I didn't have time to research where. But in the United States, I was thinking like.
Josh says hashtag
maybe,
invited.
Hashtag invited. Yes, I'm in, buddy. I'm excited. I have no idea where. I was trying to think like where's the most Asian like demographic location. I was
No,
thinking
okay,
maybe
you
like
racist. Like maybe
No,
white people
like
have gotten good at it.
Asia.
Like
like Asia land. Like that like
oh,
geography.
okay. I'm like
Like the Asia like geography. I was thinking like
it's
Arkansas.
you think it only grows for Asian people is what my brain was interpreting, and I was like, wait, what? No, like you're so, like. It's
No,
like,
no. I'm thinking like that geography is like maybe like the Ozarks a little bit, like those rolling hills where you have like a lot of like kind of warmer, humid environment. Maybe something like that. I don't know, but that's just
that's kind of like how like the Pacific Northwest has become known for its wine because it's more temperate than a lot of places in Italy. So a lot of the grapes that were grown in Italy grow better here. And a lot of those blends now come from the Pacific Northwest because they found that our climate is actually more conducive to that flavor and grape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that was funny you say that because my in-laws, they were in Italy on some beach town, and they got asked what type of wine do they want, and they got offered a wine from Oregon.
Really?
And it was like, yeah, it's like, what? We're in Italy or maybe the Amalfi Coast. I think that's what it was, maybe.
Weird.
But they got asked, "Do you want some wine?" It was from Oregon. Like, that's crazy.
Well, yeah, a lot of those they
Cool.
started growing those brands here, or those varieties here. Josh said, one crappy thing about the U.S. and rice is we sent Haiti a bunch after the earthquake, and we put most of their economy out of work, the rice farmers, thanks a bunch, saxophone president. I wonder who that is.
Eh.
And his wife Haiti hated the U.S. in the past decade. Now you know. Arkansas and California, my dad said, are the rice producers.
Arkansas. That's the Ozarks. I called it. Arkansas.
And California.
Strong work, Corky.
Because those are similar.
California, I would not, because they have a lot of water issues. So I'm surprised California.
Speaking of water issues, I want to find out more, but we should talk about the K Falls water issues here in Oregon, and the farmers losing all the water.
We need to find out more. Next week we need to go over that.
I'm going to find out more. I met one of our our front runners, at least in my opinion, that's going to be running for governor, and he was talking about it at his thing here in Staten. And he was headed down there, and they just got, it was going to be that they were getting 7%, and now they're getting 0%, which is significantly smaller than 7%.
Significantly smaller. It's actually
like
all the way
smaller.
Yeah,
like all the way.
It's all the way smaller.
It's like they were getting something, and now they're getting nothing. So that's
funny.
sad.
All right, my next TIL. Oh, wait, do you have another TIL?
I do, yes.
I think
I learned certain oak tree populations will synchronize to produce almost no acorns, only to rain them down excessively the following year, known as mast year. The year preceding the mast year is thought to starve off the mammal populations feeding on the acorns.
That's fascinating. That's genius.
Isn't that weird?
That really kind of like helps you. That really helps you conceptualize and understand the level of almost intelligence that plants have, for whatever that.
Well,
whatever
it's like
that means.
There was another TIL that I didn't put in there. There's like that. What is it? Caffeine is the defense mechanism for the coffee plant. It actually goes into the ground and makes it so other plants can't grow around it. Because most plants are resistant to the caffeine.
That's cool. Yeah. I didn't know that. That's awesome. That makes me actually want
to drink
coffee
learned.
right now. That actually
Sorry,
makes me want to drink coffee.
I just snuck his third one in there. But I don't have it.
Awesome. Okay. Today I learned Ford developed a project for a nuclear-powered car in the 50s.
I like it.
Although it was thought nuclear cars would soon replace gasoline cars, it never actually was mass-produced. It only was on scale models existed.
Here's the thing. That would be like an electric car. Because it would probably power it with electricity, or probably would drive it with electricity.
Ooh. Well, or steam. Maybe like some type of like steam.
That'd be kind of weird. But yeah,
like
maybe.
if it's heating, it would have to have some type of like steam, right? Because isn't that
like
that's
most
what powers
nuclear power plants, when they're turned on, can't be turned off. Like they have to just continue.
Most nuclear power plants turn on.
I think it would be better to have a nuclear power producing plant at your house that charges your car. Now that we have the storage technology, that would be rad.
Right. Well, that's where the issue is like the difference between fusion and fission, right? Because you can't turn off our current types of power plants.
Yeah, I'm not a nuclear physicist. It's probably
okay.
Probably good.
So that was all the TILs I have.
Yeah, I just have shower thoughts.
You got any more TILs?
Nope.
Okay, shower
I already
thoughts.
gave you 3, and I only planned on 2.
That's perfect. I have 4. Right? How many do you have?
More than that. I'll go first.
Showers. Okay. Right,
old TV static was a lot scarier for horror movies than HDMI 1 not connected.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. Let's try to make a scary movie out of that.
I think they should be like, oh no, what do we do? Or what if it was like the bouncy thing that the DVD inserted?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So when you can't remember something, but you remember it later on, your brain knew the answer, but wouldn't tell it to yourself. That's the craziest thing about our brains, is that we actually have somewhere in there a little neuron with a little electrical conductivity to it that it's just not connecting, but then somehow later on in the day, that little pathway gets connected and you can recall that memory.
So I've read about this, and the way I heard it actually proposed was slightly different. Either way is wild. So I would say I would agree with you. But the other is that like say you try to recall someone's name or something like that. You move on consciously to something else. Your brain's still working on that problem.
Ooh, Interesting. Well, yeah, yeah. It's still trying to make that
So it just
connection.
hasn't yet. It hasn't found it, but it's still doing it. How freaky is
Hmm.
that? That it's just in the background
That's
doing some
amazing.
other work on to something else, and you like wake up or whatever. I think it was
Yeah.
Bill Cosby that said that your memory is actually in your butt, and the reason he knows is because when you get up to go into the room to do something and then you forget what that is, you don't remember until you go back down and sit down, and then it pushes the memory back up into your head.
Ah, that's
Yeah,
hilarious. Josh Crane said that he's been told when he was a kid that he looked like the kid from The Ring in his preteen pictures.
dude, you still
That's
look like
funny.
the kid from The Ring.
Um, you just need that. You just need the long hair, right? Just need the long hair. Maybe he had long
Ooh,
hair when
maybe
he was
he
a kid.
did.
Maybe
Josh,
he
grow
had
your hair really
super
long.
the
We're
locks.
gonna make a.
That's a very Native American
We
thing
could
for him to have
remake
that
The
long
Ring.
hair, right? Getting back to his
Josh could
roots.
be the main character, and we will do it with HDMI 1 not connected. This
Oh
is gonna
man.
be good.
Um. Okay. Shower. Maybe someone really did, and okay, this is gonna be complex for some people, but
Are you
maybe
warning me
someone
I'm about
really
to feel
did
stupid?
go. No, no, not you, but
Oh, just
maybe someone really did go to Stephen Hawking's party, but he just couldn't tell anyone to preserve the timeline. So Stephen Hawking's before he died, he made a party and invited, he made a party but didn't invite anybody. But he made a party so that his future self would come to the
oh
party
gosh.
and meet with him and talk to him about the future. But he didn't invite anybody else. So he said nobody showed up. But maybe he did, but he had to preserve the timeline. So kind of a funny thought,
Yeah,
or someone did. I don't know.
yeah. I often wonder
Maybe
about
not.
time travel. I think it.
Okay, time travel is in. It is. You can travel to the future,
Yeah. No, no.
but you
I
can't
have a
travel to
time
the
machine.
past.
It's actually you guys can't see it. It's off camera. It's right over there. It's a cardboard box, and on the side it says time machine. And when I get in it, it moves forward at real time.
There you go. Yeah. I love talking about time travel, but
I do too.
that would be a big
Yeah,
rabbit
it's a
trail.
giant
Okay.
rabbit trail. The
The
average.
only wait is it yours? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
Yeah.
Or
You
you
go.
can go again. I don't care. The
No, 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 no. You go.
the
You go.
average pet in the Western world has a better life than the average human 200 years ago.
Say that again.
The average pet in the Western world today has a better life than the average human 200 years ago.
I would. Yeah, I think for a large amount of the population, yeah,
The
for
fact that
sure.
I have a dog sitting
Yeah, that's a good one.
upstairs,
That's
quietly
a
on
good
the
one.
couch wearing a
In a
hoodie,
comfortable room.
not even joking, says a lot.
It says a lot. Zero threats of being eaten alive. Um, the only difference between a fine, the only difference between a fine and a bribe. You hear this? The only difference between a
I
fine
am.
and a bribe is legality,
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
That's the only difference between a fine and a bribe is
I would
legality.
say oftentimes
Which,
those things meld.
oh, I hate stoplights that take pictures of me.
It's kind of
I've had
it's
bad
kind of like
experiences
what
with
if like
those.
theoretically a state had set up a lottery and said if you get the COVID vaccine between now and a certain date, we'll get you will be signed up to win $1 million.
But that's not a fine. That's
No, they
lottery.
have,
That's a
but they're having
lottery.
like a lottery and punishments.
Dude, if you won that $1 million, would you give it back?
I won't be entered.
But I'm saying if you
No, I
had,
wouldn't give it back.
would you give it back?
No, I still wouldn't have to agree with it. It's just like the stimulus. It's like I'm not gonna give it back,
Um,
but I don't necessarily agree with it. Josh,
okay, I only have
what
one
I
more
was
shower.
really laughing at was that Josh said the little boy in it, guys, not the creepy long-haired girl.
Oh, okay, touche, touche, Josh. That's hilarious. The little boy.
We
I
immediately think
seriously thought
he's
he
the
was going for the little
creepy
girl.
girl.
That's exactly what I thought. I genuinely thought he was alluding to the creepy girl. I don't know why we both went there. I guess the little boy wasn't as obviously as memorable as a character as the crazy
Definitely.
kiddo. Um, okay,
But
hit me one more shower thought.
okay. Here's my favorite one. During an earthquake, a coffin turns into a maraca.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It really does. Yeah. That's funny. Okay. This isn't as good, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I'm ending my shower thoughts with not the best one. Okay, I'll admit it. I'll call it out, but it's still kind of funny. Botox is basically a performance enhancing drug when it comes to poker players. That's
or people
that's
or people dating.
yeah, or people dating, or watching like, or like, trying not to prove they're scared.
Or yeah.
I don't know, something like that.
Or trying to look scared.
Someone watching The Ring.
Or trying to look
Yeah,
surprised
yeah,
all the time. Um,
all the time.
here's a shower thought that is Josh's that we could end on. You can park anywhere
Okay.
you want if you can afford it.
Ooh. Yeah. Y- yeah, probably. I mean, right? Like, you could pay anybody
Well, and
off
if they
to
took
park
your car
anywhere.
and you could just afford it.
Well,
It's
yeah.
like
Or I mean, if
Dumb
they
and
take
Dumber,
the
and he's
helicopter
like, you
and
can't
parked
park
it
there.
on
And
the
he's
white.
like, throws him the keys. It's like, you can have it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah, it's your car, man. Yeah. Or if you have like super super money, you could like take a helicopter and put your car on the White House lawn. Whatever. Super rich.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that done, but
probably not the
maybe.
wisest. You may not survive that one.
Well, somebody parked their airplane. Someone landed their airplane like on the White House. Didn't
It was
someone
real
land their
close.
airplane on the White House
I
lawn
cannot believe they didn't shoot
like
that thing
during
down.
Obama administration?
That just,
Wasn't that Obama or was that
I
Trump?
don't know. It just takes that takes some guts or stupidity or
Yeah, it's
both.
pretty.
Yeah, a combo.
Um.
Don't do that.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you for listening to Testing of the Norm tonight. It's been a blast.
It has
It's
been.
been super fun. And we appreciate your comments. We appreciate all your input. We appreciate you guys. And it's a blast, man. We have a lot of fun. And let's try to remember, Jordan, the whole South Oregon water reservation
K-Falls.
issue,
Yep.
because I need to know more about that for sure.
Yeah, big deal. I know it's about fish.
Yeah.
Versus farmers.
Oh, it's about fish? I didn't even know that. I didn't even know it was about fish.
Yeah.
Stinking fish. All right, guys. Well, everybody have a fantastic week, and we will shout at you later.
All right. See you guys.
Peace out, our friends.